welcome to another episode of the Wild Strength Podcast, where we talk about all things wild and all things strength and really everything in between. Today, my guest is Kurt Belding from Western Obsessions TV, and the walk-up song we are going to start with is It's All How You Look at It by Tracy Lawrence. This is like my prime road trip song. It's one of those that I just feel like anytime it comes on, I could scream at the top of my lungs. Anyways, like I said, we have Kurt Belding on here. I was introduced to him through a good friend of mine, Charity, with Ghost Town Metalworks, and she recommended he come on here. And after kind of going through his page and listening to a couple of his podcasts, we have very similar outlook on hunting and life and training and all of those things. So I'm glad to have him on here. Kurt, I'll let you give a little introduction to yourself, and then we'll get into things.
Yeah, my name's Kurt Belding, Western Obsessions TV. I guess if I summed up something quick about myself is I turned 40, freaked out, quit everything I was doing, and started hunting full-time.
Nice, yeah.
I've been doing since 40, and this will be my 4th year, so I turned 44 this month, actually.
Nice. So did you have a full-time, like, corporate type job and then just left all of that behind and started hunting full-time?
I've been an entrepreneur since I was 20.
Okay.
So I've always owned like my own businesses, and I was in the sports nutrition, kind of that fitness realm. Mm-hmm. So, and owned quite a few businesses, and I didn't like the industry anymore. And I don't know, like, I don't like to say it was a midlife crisis. I like to say midlife adjustment.
Yeah.
Midlife, it just seems too crazy, right? But this is pretty crazy. And I ended up selling or closing all of my businesses, and I just wanted to go on like cool hunting adventures. So that's what I've been doing for the last 3, almost 4 years. And it's been a blast. I spend more money than I make for sure doing it, but I'm living the life the way I want to live it, and having the experiences that I want to have, which is real important to me.
For sure. No, I think that's like, and I joke around a lot saying something similar. I'm just going to quit work and dive right into it. And maybe you can relate to this, especially as an entrepreneur. You probably have a very addictive personality. And like once I like something or I'm into something, I want to put every ounce of effort and energy I have into it. It seems like you've, and we can talk about this as well, been hunting all of your life, correct?
Yeah, for the most part. Grew up in Nebraska, so I was hunting like whitetail, turkey, pheasant, quail, that type of thing. I took a little break in my 20s while I was in college. I played baseball in college and was more into girls than deer at that point. So
makes sense.
Took a little break from pretty much throughout my 20s, but moved here to Colorado in my late 20s and started to try to elk hunt. That's where I really got back into it. So, but kind of to your point of like addictive personality, actually, no, I actually have the opposite. I don't like to be addicted to anything. And I have vices, but if I'm not good at something and I enjoy it or like I have a passion for it, I obsess over it until I can. So that's part of the Western obsessions part, is like obsessing over hunting. Right. So I'll spend a lot of time and energy just obsessing and pushing way into something to get as good as I can get into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you said you moved to Colorado like late 20s to get into elk hunting. Was that your draw to Colorado specifically, was elk hunting, or did you kind of you were drawn to Colorado and then kind of found elk hunting as a secondary part of that?
Actually, I wanted to move to Boston because I wanted a completely different culture change than the Midwest that I was growing up in. And the girl that I was dating at the time wanted to move to Colorado, and she won. So I moved to Colorado, and I bought a business, a GNC store while I was here. And we were together like 3 years. We moved here and broke up within like months after I bought this business. So I'm like, well, shit.
I'm here now.
I didn't really want to be here. I was here for her. but I'm here and I'm going to be here for a while. So since I own this business, and started an elk hunt, and man, I tell you what, a whitetail hunter from the Midwest trying to come out and archery elk hunt is almost impossible. It's so tough. That learning curve is so steep. And again, like something I'm not good at, but I really enjoy. I just obsessed
Mhm.
about it, got good at it. Ended up opening up more businesses, and actually, I owned an outfitting business for a while, for like
Mm.
5 or 6 years, guiding elk hunters. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in between there, but here I am now hunting full time.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Yeah, I am kind of an adult onset hunter. I got into hunting 2, 3 years ago, and I'm from Texas originally, so it's probably a similar experience you had hunting whitetail deer out of a blind and oftentimes also off of a feeder. And so it's a pretty schedule oriented. Like maybe they're not always guaranteed to be there. I made it a point to always hunt the free range properties. I don't know your thoughts on the high fence kind of stuff, but I if I was going to have it be free game or free chase kind of concept, I wanted to hunt a free range property. So it's obviously wasn't guaranteed that it was going to be there. But yeah, spent time hunting deer in Texas and then moved out here to Colorado. And I've lived in Colorado before, but I wasn't hunting at the time. So I moved back out here last June and I'm going full force into backcountry style hunting. I'm going to spend every available hour that I have watching YouTube videos, reading books, listening to podcasts, trying to figure out what do I need to do to be able to do this. And granted, I was not successful in filling my own tag this year, but I was certainly in them and around them. And like to me, for that being my first season is a huge success because I hear of people who have been out here for years and maybe they don't even get that opportunity. How long? Kind of a two-parted question. Did you start out rifle elk hunting or did you start out archery elk hunting? And then how long did it take you to feel like you kind of maybe you don't ever kind of have it completely figured out, but you kind of felt like, all right, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, good questions. I'm going to back up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Texas, low fence, high fence. I
Mm-hmm.
have done a couple high fence hunts with some
Mm-hmm.
buddies, and I'm not a big fan. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just
Yeah,
my opinion. There's nothing wrong with it. I think it's got its place. You know,
for
it's got
sure.
its place where, and I don't need to go into that rabbit hole of like where those places are, but it has its place. Nothing wrong with it. Just I don't prefer it just because it doesn't feel like hunting to me as
Mm-hmm.
much. Challenges isn't there as much. So I enjoy free range hunting a lot more too. And I know Texas is hard. Like you got a lot of undergrowth where like you kind of have to use a feeder, right? Just to
Mm-hmm.
see the animal. And we can't feed animals here in Colorado. So don't put
Yeah.
your feeder here in Colorado. Sorry, I just wanted to address that. Okay, so your question, it was a two-part question, right? Like, sorry, can you ask me that again?
Yeah,
I
no,
think I
totally
forgot.
fine. So did you start you got into elk hunting? Did you start rifle elk hunting or archery elk hunting? And then kind of how long did it take you to feel like you kind of had your feet under you and you kind of knew what you were doing and at least regularly you were maybe not harvesting an elk, but at least in them and around them?
Yeah, I started archery elk hunting, kind
Okay.
of both of them simultaneously. I just wanted
Mhm.
to elk hunt. Um, and not even close to being successful, not even close to like finding elk. Like it was terrible. You know, and I'm not an adult onset hunter, but I am for elk. So I
Mhm.
understand the learning curve and how steep that is. And that's how
Yeah.
I met Charity actually. She won one of my hunt mentor packages. So I do
Oh,
some
cool.
hunt mentoring for this specific thing, right? And let me do a lot of stuff, but um, back to your question, yeah, it's extremely difficult because I was whitetail hunting in Nebraska, where it's like, okay, here's a creek line, you know where the deer are going to be. It's pretty simple, right?
Mhm.
It's just setting up that specific spot, and I mean, whitetail hunting is I'm making it sound easier than what it is. It's difficult, but
Mhm.
coming to the mountains and you have thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of land, public land in the mountains to hunt, and with a bow, okay, go find elk. Like that just seemed astronomically impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I started archery hunting. I also did rifle hunting almost simultaneously, just trying to get as much elk hunting done as possible. And, I started out like, okay, I'm going to go hike over here and set up my camp. And that lasted like 2 days. And I was like, man, this is tough. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I did some rifle hunting with the girl I was with at the time, her father, which was let's drive around and see if we see anything hunting. And I didn't enjoy that very much. It didn't really seem like hunting. So I actually ended up hiring an outfitter on like year 3
Mm-hmm.
of me elk hunting to my thought was I'm gonna learn as much as I can learn from this outfitter and just
Mm-hmm.
soak everything in. Um, it really wasn't my thought of like, okay, I'm gonna go on an outfit and hunt to kill an elk. Like, great, if I did that, awesome. But I've got 5 days with these guys, and I was probably annoying as hell because I just asked questions
Yeah.
the entire time, right? And I learned a ton doing that with people that have been doing it for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, which is so important to find a mentor of some sort. Mine at that point was a paid mentor, right? A hired outfitter for 5 days. But it helped me really kind of get over that hump of like, okay, I need to be in this type of area and I need to be doing these types of things. And I can be more specific with that too, if you'd like me on
No,
that.
totally up to you.
Um, but it really helped. And then I just got obsessed with it. And just like you, I did a lot of research. I Googled, I read forums. But here, the thing that helped me the most was just boots on the ground, getting into the field
Mm-hmm.
and getting around elk. I learned so much faster that way than reading or watching a video. So if you guys listening, if you're an adult onset hunter like that, just doing will
Mm-hmm.
help you so much faster.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. And I'm fortunate that I have a pretty flexible work schedule. And I was able, I think it was my first September archery elk hunting in Colorado, and I was able to spend like 15 days in total. And even then, like I said, I was not successful in filling my tag, but just the time out there in the field, in the backcountry, in the mountains is unmatched to any amount of time I spent watching videos, reading books, listening to podcasts, because you just learn so much more doing that. Are you familiar with the Colorado Hunt Planners?
Is that through Division of Wildlife?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
someone had told me about that, and I heavily utilize those folks. They'll connect you with the wildlife biologist in whatever county you're looking at. So I had drawn a bear tag actually out towards Montrose, and originally was just going to be hunting for bear. And found out that it was an over the counter elk unit. There were elk around. So I was like, I'm just going to ask them about both. And that is a huge resource that I try. Even people who I know have been here for years don't know about that. And that helped me so much because, like I said, I had no idea what I was doing.
No, that's a really good resource. And actually, I did utilize them. I wanted to go pronghorn hunting,
Mm-hmm.
archery hunting. So they did help me kind of like narrow down some units to go do that, which is fantastic free resource for you guys.
For sure. Yeah.
If you're living in Colorado, to definitely take advantage. And if you don't live in Colorado, like look at your other states, their game and parks websites. I guarantee other states have very similar
Something
programs.
similar. Yeah. Yeah. Talk a little
But
bit more. You mentioned that hunt mentor program that you do. Talk a little bit more about that.
yeah, I just knew like it's so hard and it takes so long to learn
Mm-hmm.
um, to be get to a point where like you can have a little bit higher chance of success, right? Like art, and we're if we're talking about archery elk hunting, um, 10 to 15% of people that buy a tag are actually successful. So
Mm-hmm.
and that's probably the same 10 to 15% every year are successful. It's because they got it figured out, right? And I think that having the right expectations going into the hunt is really, really important, especially for a
Mm-hmm.
new. Like I heard you say a couple times, "Oh, I didn't fill my tag," but at your first season, like you shouldn't even expect to fill the
Yeah.
tag.
And
So
I had zero expectations.
Yeah, if you feel the deer one, like that's pretty huge. And I'm not trying to like belittle or like talk less about your skills or anybody else's skills year
Hmm.
one. You probably like if you do, it's probably pretty lucky, you know,
For
as well.
sure. Yeah.
So the expectations are real important, especially with social media, right? Like it
Mm.
seems like everyone's killing animals. Oh, they're going hunting, they're killing this big bull, they're killing this deer, they're killing this, they're killing like everyone's killing all the time. I go out and I didn't see anything. I've gone out 3 years and I haven't killed anything. I must be a loser. I must really suck at hunting. No, that's not the case. You're only seeing the successful people when they're successful, which is not often.
Hmm.
And harvesting the animal, yeah, that might be the goal, but that's only like 5% of everything that you're actually doing.
For sure.
Like the enjoyment of being in the mountains, enjoyment of being around the animals. Backpack hunting is really, really a lot of fun. Learning, being, if you're going with other people, just the camaraderie of being out with other people, hanging out. Like there's so much more value if you have kids, taking your kids hunting. There's so much more value of hunting than harvesting the animal.
For
And
sure.
unfortunately, we put that as like that's equals success. If I don't kill an animal, I'm not successful. And that's not the case at all. I know I'm rambling a little bit right now, Whitney. I apologize, but I just feel strongly about that as like
Hmm.
expectations of new hunters to enjoy
No,
the
yeah.
hunt, have fun doing what you're doing, and know the percentages. Know that like 10 to 15% of archery elk hunters actually kill, and it's not new hunters that kill. It's people that have been doing it a long time.
For sure. No, yeah, I
Um,
think that's a really good point to make too. And I 100% went into the season like not expecting to see anything. So even the fact that I was seeing them, hearing them, smelling them was beyond anything that I could have asked for. And I think to it, like, yeah, like I said, you make a really good point there because I think my reason in saying like, yeah, I didn't fill my tag is maybe me trying to justify like what I know, right? Like just because I didn't fill a tag, I still feel like I learned a lot and I'm able to speak to it. And kind of like you said, just spending that time out there. And you can go 3, 4, 5 years without filling a tag, but hopefully each year that you're out there, you're learning more and more, and you're able to go out the next year with a little bit more knowledge and become a little bit more closer to being successful. And I've talked to people who've also never filled a tag who've been doing it for 3, 4 years and they know so much. It's still like I don't just have to learn from someone who's only ever harvested every year that they've been here.
yeah,
But yeah, I think that's a really good point to make.
yeah, and I've guided guys that I've guided this one individual that he's been hunting 30 years and it's never killed an elk with his bow, and that's a long time of
Yeah.
not harvesting an animal, but he enjoys it so much, and he had the right mindset that hey, I just want to have a lot of enjoyment. And I want to continue to learn. And even, I've done a lot of elk hunting. I've killed a good amount of bulls. And last year I didn't fill my tag. And I was in a good area that I knew. I was
Mm-hmm.
in elk almost every day. And the stars still didn't line and I still didn't fill my elk tag. But you had asked about Hunt Mentor,
Mm-hmm.
my program. And it's really for anybody that wants to be more successful at hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Mentored people on their first elk hunt. I've mentored people that have not been successful elk hunting for many years. I've mentored whitetail people, turkey, bear, really anybody that's hunting that wants to have just a little more guidance, that wants to have an actual mentor that they can talk to and kick around ideas. And like I do a lot of, there's this guy from, I think it was North Carolina, that he wanted some help with scouting public land. So we pulled up Onyx and I went through it, my process of scouting, and he had not been successful for the last 3 or 4 years. And just through us scouting together, his first set, he said he saw more deer in his first set than he did in the last 3 years. So he was like super pumped. He didn't end up shooting one, but he was like, man, I was so excited to see so many deer. And, like that's so rewarding for me
Mm-hmm.
to help people like that. And it's what's nice now with technology. We didn't meet in person. We did everything over Zoom. We jumped on Onyx together. We scouted together, and it it was just so we can do that stuff now. It's just super super nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think too, it's cool to know that people are using that resource and reaching out, because I know, and granted, I've come across some incredible people in the hunting industry, but you do come across those guys who, like I said, maybe they haven't been successful for quite a few years and they're still not willing to ask for help. And so I think, and just even in my career outside of hunting, my background is as a strength and conditioning coach. And I've always been huge on like learn from someone who knows more, like absorb from someone who knows more than you, because you'll, no matter how much time and effort you put into it, it's really hard to learn a lot yourself. And you can still learn a lot yourself. And I think I was listening to a podcast of yours yesterday, where you had said like maybe like said something along like you did something wrong and then you corrected yourself and you're like, well, maybe I didn't do it wrong, but I just did it my way. And so everyone does things differently too. So maybe you do have it figured out, but even to still go and hunt with someone who does things a little differently, you can still learn a little bit more that way.
Yeah. Like there's so much ego in the industry now that like this is the way you need to do it to be successful, or you have to be using this gear or you're not going to be successful. Like that's not true. Like yes, the right gear will help you stay a little bit warmer or drier longer and maybe more comfortable. Or maybe it's a broadhead that may be cut a little bit better, or it's a technique that has worked for those people. But like have your own way of doing things. It doesn't mean that it has to be the way that you do it. There's just a lot of ego, out there on content being created and stuff like that. Where like, nope, this is so and so doesn't like this. I have to do it like this because they're successful. Yeah, sure. Like learn from other people, but if you're finding a different way that like you enjoy hunting, like I'll give you an example. Sorry, I'm talking very broadly about tactics here.
No,
I
that's
should
fine. Yeah.
I probably should be a little more specific for your listeners and yourself. So, and we'll just stay on elk hunting because I know that's like what you're enjoying right now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, you'll see the calling of elk, and calling elk is so much fun. It's a blast, and people can go, you know, really down a deep rabbit hole of like the specific call sounds that an elk makes and why they make them and when they make them and how to call a herd bull and like all this stuff. And yet there's definitely times for that. But my way, how I enjoy elk hunting, is actually not calling that much. I may use calls to locate, but if I
Mm-hmm.
can not make a sound and be 100% undetected to the elk and sneak up in within elk, I'll do it. I don't want to take the chance of making a call and it was the wrong cow call and now the cows are pushing the bull up the mountain, or the bull wasn't ready to fight. He didn't want to fight, and I wasn't close enough, or something was just not quite right, and now he's moving his cows off, and I screwed that. Anytime I can sneak up and not make a sound, I'm going to take it. And it's not maybe as fun as calling the bull in. He comes charging in and bugling, but for me, I've had more success doing that. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that because I do not know how to call. I have a mouth call and I practice and I try, and I'm not, I don't practice enough, so I can say I'm still not good at it because I haven't put enough effort into that. But in the times I was around them this season, I was not calling at all. And I've heard similar things. I've heard people say, and different strokes for different folks. Some people love to do the calling, and like you said, just bugle them in, and that's cool too. And then some people do not know how to call at all and are successful every single year. So I guess, yeah, just whatever you like to do best.
Yeah, whatever works for you. There's no wrong way to do it. There's again a lot of ego saying this is the only way you have to do it. Like this is because
Yeah.
I'll do it and I'm the most successful hunter on the planet, right? So, and that's not true. I don't know. I'm going on a tangent a little bit, I guess.
No, that is totally fine. So you started archery elk hunting in Colorado. Did you kind of go full force on elk hunting, or were you kind of learning tools of the trade for deer
Sorry when you're
hunting out
cutting
here
out.
too? You mentioned a pronghorn hunt. I don't know how long it took you to get into that as well. Did you want to figure out elk hunting first, or were you trying to figure it all out at once?
You cut out a little bit, so I want to make sure I understood you. I started.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I want to
So
figure out.
you came out here, you started archery elk hunting. Did you want to figure out, like, did you spend years just hunting elk before you started hunting deer out here, pronghorn? I know you mentioned a pronghorn as well. Or did you kind of just go all in and try to learn all of hunting styles for all of the different game?
Yeah, good question. I started out with archery elk, and for you guys listening, I understand like archery elk hunting is cool and it looks cool and looks awesome, but it is absolutely like one of the hardest ways to start hunting. You know, I would not recommend probably starting that way. I would, if you wanted to have higher successes, higher chance of success in killing an animal, I would start with a gun. Start with a gun. And get good at shooting and get good at archery hunting, and then move to archery. That would be my suggestion. Anyway, back to me. I got kind of obsessed with elk hunting because I didn't have elk in Nebraska, right? So I
Mhm.
dug really deep into elk hunting, but I did the other stuff too. So, but which is nice about elk here in Colorado for the time being, still, is you can get over the counter licenses, right? So I can go hunt every year. With deer, you have to draw a tag. So, and at the time when I first started, I didn't really understand the draw process very well, and I didn't understand like how to build points and stuff like that. So I just kept picking up over the counter tags and just hunt. A few years into it, I was like, oh wait, there's this draw system where like, okay, I could hunt better spots if I built points and got better tags. And then I started like hunting more species and doing a lot.
Yeah, I think, and I would agree. I appreciate, like I mentioned earlier, I started hunting in Texas, and while it was not my favorite style of hunting, even just learning the patience of sitting there and then the buck fever that you get when a 10-point buck walks right out in front of you and you draw back and you're just shaking uncontrollably because maybe you've never been that close to an animal before, to a deer, and not even have you not been that close, you've never drawn back on one. And so I think from that perspective, like I very much value the season, the time that I spent doing that. And then I've also heard similarly to start with the rifle hunt. So you can at least maybe just figure out where they're at. You can take longer range shots. You maybe have more opportunity rifle hunting. That's not to say that you're guaranteed with a rifle hunt, but you definitely have more opportunity because you are able to take those more longer range shots.
Yeah, and talking about buck fever, like especially starting out hunting, doe fever's a thing. You get anyone
Yeah.
that's you, and you're shaking uncontrollably. Like there's no other feeling like it on the planet than that adrenaline dump of like, oh my god, there's an animal right here, and they don't know I'm here, and I might be able to shoot it. I might be able to draw my bow or gun or whatever you're hunting with, and then after that moment ends, whether or not you've killed the animal or the animal left or whatever, like that adrenaline dump is just insane. You don't
Yeah,
get that
I would
anymore.
agree. I went on an archery mule deer hunt in January, and a couple of the people I was with had javelina tags as well. I don't know if you ever hunted javelina before.
Yeah,
And one of the guys I was out, we had been in a bunch of mule deer. It was like prime rut during this time of year. It was perfect. And then we just happened to walk up on a group of javelinas, and they heard us, smelled us, and ran. And he called them back in. And as they're coming running in, like I have buck fever, doe fever, javelina fever, call it what you want, as they're coming in. And I'm not even the one who's going to be shooting. Like just to be in that situation, I think is an unmatched feeling. Like the feeling that comes over you, I is indescribable. I don't know if you have words for it.
I can't describe it. I don't. It's really hard for someone that doesn't hunt. There's no other feeling I've ever had in my life than that. I mean, I played a lot of sports, and when you win a really big game, that might be close to it.
Mm-hmm.
Real important big game, right? That might be kind of, but like it's still like when you win a big game, it's a prolonged high that you have of like adrenaline,
Mm-hmm.
dopamine, and excitement. When you have buck fever or like have animals come in, it is such a flood of like so fast. It's not prolonged at all. It just hits you so hard. And I've never shook like your hand shaking, your whole body shaking, and you're like, okay, I'm kind of cold right now because I've been sitting in this tree or wherever you're at, but I'm not cold enough to be like almost falling out of the tree because I'm shaking so
Yeah.
hard, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's I don't know, that's the best way I can
Yeah. And I
describe
also, when I try to describe it to someone who doesn't hunt, or maybe they don't understand hunting, or they're like, oh, why do you like to quote unquote kill animals? And you always can go back to the quote, like, if they called it killing, I'd be successful all the time. That's why they call it hunting. But then I'll describe that feeling, and I have to think, and I'm curious maybe your thoughts on this as well. Um, like, if we were just in it to kill animals, I don't think that that's how we would feel whenever we're about to draw back, or pull the trigger on a rifle. But like, that feeling that we feel in that moment, knowing that we might get to harvest this animal that's in front of us, it is encompassing of those thoughts. Like, I'm not just in it strictly to kill an animal.
No, that's true. That is the goal, though. I'm not going to
For
like
sure.
sugarcoat anything and say my goal is not to kill an animal. My goal is to kill an animal. My goal is to
Absolutely.
kill an animal that I feel is challenging. It's a challenge for me. If it's easy, I don't really. It's not my thing. Like I can just go walk out to I don't know, a farm and go say, yeah, this is the cow that I want, and I can go kill it if that's what I want
Mm-hmm.
to do. It's not. I love the challenge. I always say, like, here you live in Colorado now,
Mm-hmm.
and we have these 14ers, 14 in mountains that are 14,000 feet,
Mm-hmm.
and we have these 14er people that love to climb these mountains. And most people, like Kurt, you're probably really good at that, right? Like, you hike all the time, you do hard stuff like that. Do you do a lot of them? Like, I'm like, hell no, I don't do that. That's crazy. Why would you do that? Like, why would you go hike a 14er? But if you put an elk on top of a 14er, I'll do three of them in a day. you know, I'll
Yeah.
go. So it's that goal
Mm.
uh, of like the challenge, and especially elk, archery elk hunting is a super hard challenge to find the elk, get close enough to elk, to harvest the elk, but also in other species too. Like when I'm deer hunting, I'm not there to try to harvest a doe. I'm there to try to harvest a mature buck. And that's a super hard challenge just to find the buck.
For
Right.
sure.
So I don't know. I guess I'm throwing in a little bit of like it's the challenge also of finding the animal that you're pursuing.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I don't know, for people that don't hunt, and a lot of hunters also, it's actually the pursuit that's the valuable part. That's really the fun. That's really, I say fun because you enjoy the fun because there's contrast of suck. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
all rainbows and like, oh my God, this is so much fun all the time. Nope. There's definitely a lot of like, this really sucks. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm wet. I'm cold. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm starving. This sucks really bad, which makes the fun a lot more
We're
fun,
worth it.
more worth it, more rewarding. It's the pursuit of an animal that is the valuable part of hunting for me. And a lot of times, if I harvest an animal, I'm like, oh man, it's over. Dang, now I don't get to like feel that pursuit anymore in this hunt season. Right.
Yeah. No, I would agree entirely. And kind of, this will like transition the conversation a little bit more into kind of like the fitness and training side of things. I laugh when you bring up the 14ers. I love doing them, but because in my mind it's the suck of it. Like, they actually fucking suck.
Yeah.
And you get up there, but I do hear a lot of, especially like backcountry elk hunters, saying the exact same thing. Like, you couldn't pay me enough to hike a 14er. But I will put miles and miles and miles on my feet chasing after an elk. So then, yeah, where I kind of want to transition the conversation, and I know you're big into the fitness side of things and training for the hunt as well, and that kind of, I think the training and the build up to it is also part of the pursuit, like not just the hunt itself. What do you do to train or prepare for spending days in the backcountry and putting miles on your feet and those kinds of things?
Yeah. And I mean, my answer to that is probably not going to be what you think it is. The reasoning, I guess, behind that, and I'm teasing this a little bit, but
Yeah.
the reason why is most people think, okay, if Kurt, if you're getting in shape to go hunting, it's because you want to be able to hike a long ways and be able to physically do that. Yeah, that's part of it for sure. I want to be able to physically do it, but there's no way you can train for an archery elk hunt
Mm-hmm.
physically. You can't. Like, how do you train for hiking 8 to 10 hours a day?
You
You're
don't.
not going to go out and hike 8 to 10 hours a day on a weekly
Mm-hmm.
basis. You don't have the time to do it. How do you train for carrying around a 60-pound pack on 15-mile days? You can't. How do you train for packing out a bowl when you're 120 pounds on your back, or super heavy, and you got 6 miles to go downhill, and people don't understand that downhill is actually worse than the uphill.
Yes.
So my point to that is, like, yes, I stay physically fit mainly for the fact of, like, physically I want to have a little bit of an edge. I want to make sure I can do it, but I want to make sure I can hunt till I'm old. I want to hunt till I'm 80. I want to be able to do an archery backcountry hunt till I'm 80 years old with my 2-year-old little boy that's now he's 2, and by the time he's doing it, we got like 15 years of him actually being able to do it. So I'm 44, add 15, I'm old, right? So I want to be able to go do it with him. That's why I stay in physical good health and shape. But here's the caveat. Here's the real reason why I train the way I do. And let me tell you what I do. I do a lot of CrossFit. I do a lot of running. I do weight training. I do strength training. And the reason why I do CrossFit is not because I'm crazy and I do like to do dumb, weird pull-up movements. It's because it's the workout that's the most mentally tough. It
Mm-hmm.
sucks. It hurts every time. There's not an easy CrossFit workout every day. It sucks. So I'm training my mental toughness is what I'm doing. Is if I'm not training mental toughness every day, I start to get soft. I start to get comfortable. And when I'm on day 6 of a archery elk hunt and I'm running out of food and it's been raining on me for 2 days and my boots freeze, my socks freeze, I haven't seen elk in 3 days, I'm going to, that's terrible, right? And there's a big voice in my head says, just go back to the truck, just
Mm-hmm.
pack it up, like go get warm, come back in a few more days. It's okay. Like you haven't seen elk in three days. This is miserable. No one wants to do this. Just go home. Mental toughness will keep me out there. So I train my mental toughness, and the longer you're out there on the hunt, the more successful you can be. That increases your chances, right? So that is why I train the way I do. And I know this is getting long-winded, but I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
Is training the mental toughness for the hunt. And whitetail hunters can be the same way. Is like, okay, I'm gonna sit in my tree stand all day long, not coming out from sun up to sundown, and I'm gonna freeze my butt off. It takes a lot of mental fortitude to do that. A lot of
Yeah.
mental toughness. So mental toughness training is the number one key for me. And obviously I want to stay fit and healthy to be able to do this for as long as I can do it.
Yeah, no, and I would agree. And yeah, like I said, my background in education is in exercise science and strength and conditioning, and people ask me similar things, and I'm like smiling at everything that you're saying because I agree wholeheartedly, and it's rare that people have that same mindset towards training anyways, and remove hunting entirely, right? When you're in it for the long haul, you're in it for longevity, you want to train in a way that your body does not feel beat up all the time. And I think most people have this idea in their mind, and you kind of mentioned this, to prepare for the backcountry they need to go on these long rucks every single day, and that's how they're going to prepare. And I've mostly worked in a military setting as well, and I see how badly that tears you down. So why then, like you mentioned, you want to be doing this for years and for a very long time, would you be doing a style of training that is physically tearing you down and making you hurt and you're in pain and all of this stuff? Why would you want to do that when you could train smarter? Like for me, same thing. I big proponent of strength training, and I think I have like another episode where I kind of talked about this with someone else. He's been in strength and conditioning for 20, 30 years now, and we kind of talk about building different qualities, right? So you need to be strong to be able to pack out an elk. You need to have some bit of endurance to be able to pack out an elk. You need to have the mental strength, the mental fortitude to be able to pack out an elk. You have to have resilient ankles. Like we get kind of deep and into some of those other things too. But I think, yeah, most people think, all right, elk September's coming up, got about 2, 3 months to prepare. Some people don't even start preparing until a month in advance, and they just go out and they ruck every single day, 60 plus pounds on their back. And what is that doing for you? It's not doing a whole lot.
You're right. It's not, man, help you get comfortable with a pack on your back
For sure. Yeah.
for some. And like mentally, it's not really doing a whole lot because you're going up a mountain, like, or unless you're living on a mountain and like spending 6 hours rocking up a mountain would be cool. That could be some good training. But you're right. Like, and I love the company Go Ruck. I do like rucking. I think that
For sure.
it
Yeah.
can be very beneficial for your body. But if you're doing it to train, just to train for elk hunting, it's not as beneficial as what people think it will
Yeah.
be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Western Hunt Fest. They've kind of had this. They have a pack out challenge, and they have people who are training for that. And I've had people come to me and ask, like, how can I train for this pack out challenge? And then I give them some sort of advice, and they still just go ruck with 60 plus pounds on their back on the treadmill or in the snow or on a trail. And I'm like, that'll only get you so far. I'm preparing for it, and I have not rucked a single time, and I don't really intend to because I'm confident, and you probably feel similarly, in what I'm doing outside of that. That I'm going to be prepared when the time comes.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's look at fitness as a whole, not even just as for hunting. Is most people look at fitness and exercise as my goal is to look better. My goal is to
Mm.
lose these pounds.
Hmm.
Or, if you're maybe you want to put on some more muscle, but the goal for most people is to look better. And I think that's the wrong way of going about it. I think the goal of fitness needs to be mentally, like to be healthy in general,
Hmm.
mental health and physical health. But like fitness for me is way more mental health than it is physical health. So to be healthy in general is should be the goal, and the byproduct of it is you look better. That's just the byproduct of being fit. Like you can use fitness in so many different ways that can benefit your life, and I love the mental toughness part of it. Is I don't want to go to the gym, but I'm going to be disciplined, and I'm going to go to
Hmm.
the gym, and I'm going to work on my mental toughness, which also builds confidence. Oh man,
Hmm.
I've never been able to do a pull up. I just got my first pull up. How much does that build confidence in your life, whether it be in your relationships, at work, maybe hunting? Like the confidence you get from fitness, the mental toughness you get from fitness, the stress relief, the dopamine fix from fitness. Like now we don't need to use food for dopamine. We don't need to use alcohol for dopamine. We can use
Hmm.
exercise for dopamine, right? So like there's so much more fitness does for you rather than I want to look good. And most people say, I want to look good by this date because I have something going on. Summertime's coming up, I have a wedding or a vacation or whatever. And then they like go hard for 2 months. Maybe, maybe they do like
Maybe,
5%.
yeah.
And okay, cool, that event's done. Now I'm going to go back to my lifestyle of overeating, using food as dopamine, like I don't know. I went on a little bit of tangent again there, Whitney, but like I feel very strongly about using exercise to better your life, not just to look better.
Yeah, no, and I agree wholeheartedly as well. And I say similar things. I actually had a friend the other day who had said something along the lines of, like, he wants to prepare for this season, but also his mindset is, I do this. I hate working out, but I do this so I like what I see in the mirror. And I'm like, so you're not training for elk season and to feel capable and confident. You're training so that you look good in the mirror. Like, those are two totally different mindsets, and are preparing you for two totally different things. And I would agree. I think, especially being like a female who strength trains, and I used to compete in powerlifting, that carries over into so many other aspects of my life that I feel confident, but competent is more the word that comes to mind for me. Because I feel like, whether it is something as far as picking up something heavy or packing out a heavy load, or just like, maybe I'm trying to figure out how to do something with my car that has nothing to do with anything that's heavy, but like, I feel competent enough or confident enough to want to figure out how to do that on my own. And yeah, that goes into so many other aspects of life that I think people don't realize. And then back to kind of what we were talking about, when you're beating yourself in and you're training, like, I don't think you're looking at it for the long haul. And maybe people don't want to live forever. That's okay too. Like, if that's your goal, that's fine. But like, if you like, for you have a goal to be able to hunt with your kid until he's old enough maybe to be able to do this on his own, and that looks like putting like adding years to your life to be able to do that. And I think so few people recognize that or see it that way. And it's just like one small mindset change to view it a little bit differently. And then I think so many more people would benefit more from that. And I kind of, the whole 75 hard thing, I think is something that like I hate and I feel strongly about. Cause like you said, it's something that maybe it's mentally challenging. Maybe it's temporarily changing your lifestyle for 75 days. But more often than not, you go right back to what you were doing before that. And I don't say this to like brag or say that I'm better than anybody. But when I look at like what all the 75 hard thing entails, that's what I do on a day to day basis, right? Like I shouldn't need some challenge to be able to do those things.
Yeah. It's an everyday thing. Like if you want changes in your life, you make the changes right now. You don't wait for a New Year's or wait to do a program. So I agree with you 100%. And like if people don't want to think long term about this, right? Most people don't think long term. It's
Yeah.
okay. Let's think short term about it. How do you want to have the best day today? What would make your day today the best day you can have? Well, does feeling good and happy, is that going to make you have a really good day? Does eating a bunch of garbage, junk food, does that make you feel good in the moment? And then you feel like shit the rest of the day. Um, does that dopamine fix make you happy? Does that make you feel good? I'm big on dopamine. I play a lot of dopamine games with myself. Um, so like, for me to have the best day is I wake up early. I like to be productive, so I
Mhm.
get that dopamine fix of being productive, right? So I get up super early. I be productive. Then I spend time with my kids because uh, that's fun. I get dopamine from that. And then I'll definitely go to the gym. I get a dopamine fix from the gym, and I'm happy. And then I'll come back and be more productive. And then I'll maybe go shoot my bow. Or these are all happy, fun stuff that I do that which is centered around being healthy, eating really good. So like my food is not planned, but like I know what I'm eating. I know what's in the fridge. It's healthy. I eat a lot of wild game. But I design my day to try to have the best day that I can have, as happy as I can have it. And that's fitness, that's spending time with my family, that's doing something that I really love and enjoy, maybe around hunting, maybe it's researching hunting or whatever, like I'm obsessed about it. And it's family time, and it's all about dopamine for me. It's all about feeling good and having a really good day. So like if you just put together back to back days, or 75% of your days is surrounded by like, let's have the best day we can have,
Mhm.
it's going to look like that. And you're
Yeah.
going to
I
proud of it
think Yeah,
as
I
you
think
go
that's
through.
a really good way to look at it too. Is yeah, like you said, maybe you are once in a lifetime. You live North Carolina, you don't really get to go backcountry elk hunting, and so you plan for one this year, and you just want to train for it just right now, and you have this one very short term goal that you're looking at, and then you go on that backcountry elk hunt, you come back, and you're like, oh, good, I don't have to train for that anymore. But I think, like you mentioned, let's look at it short term from a day to day perspective. How can And I always like the concept of like 1% better every day. What can I do each day, each morning, day in and day out, where I wake up tomorrow feeling like, oh, I did something yesterday that was productive. I feel like one step closer towards where I want to be. And even goes into the whole, yeah, mental health thing. As far as like that is obviously a huge crisis in this country, and I'm sure in other countries as well. And if you just take your day and you break it down, like I'm a very routine person too. So, kind of like you mentioned, you have your morning routine, you wake up early, you do what you need to do, you play with your kids, you go to the gym, you come back. And I'm very similar. And I think when you break down your day and you look at the small pieces, because also when you look so far ahead, that can be scary.
Mhm.
There's even research that shows, and it's not highlighted because people love to have goals and people love to set goals, but there's research that shows that more long-term goals can also be harmful, right? Because sometimes it seems so far-fetched or so unrealistic or so far away that oftentimes people quit before they ever reach those goals. So what is my goal for today? What is my goal for tomorrow? Maybe even this week, but I think too often we spend so much time looking way beyond that's where the stress comes in. That's where the anxiety comes in. And that's where we end up just throwing in the towel and not caring anymore because it seems so far fetched because it's so far away.
Yeah, 100%. And people are so comfortable these days. Like that's where I think a lot of like, and I read a book, so I like some of these. processes I've had, mental processes, these thoughts I've had. This book I read, which is called The Comfort Crisis. If you haven't read it,
Great book.
oh my god, great book. Um, a lot of this concepts come from that too. Is you're so comfortable, which causes can I won't go into details, but causes a lot of problems in life being too comfortable, right? Um, so, and I'm a huge advocate of doing hard things,
Mm-hmm.
like super hard things. And I just believe you learn so much from it. I actually took my daughter, which is 14, and her cousin, which is my niece, and I made them climb their first 14er last year. I know I talk crap about 14ers, but and I climbed it, right? So made them climb the first 14er, and I guarantee you they're going to learn so much more from that one day of climbing a 14er than they probably have learned most of their life, of not quitting. Things suck, keep pushing forward. They can accomplish more than what they think they can. And then that feeling of bliss of like, wow, look what I did. And my niece went back home to my sister and would not stop talking about the mountain she climbed.
Nice.
Like
Yeah.
confident building, like just doing really, really hard things. I'm just a really big advocate about, and it's not about, you try to accomplish them, but sometimes you don't accomplish them. It's okay. That's also a really good learning lesson too.
Yeah, you mentioned the book The Comfort Crisis. That's a great book, and I've read it as well, and it's something that I recommend to anyone and everyone. If you have not read that and you're listening to this, go buy The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. And you kind of said, yeah, like you might not achieve that. I think he talks about the concept of a masogi,
Mm-hmm.
and basically it's doing something that's really hard, and even the point of a masogi is that you don't finish it, right? And
Yeah.
then
You should
but
have
you push yourself, you challenge yourself, and in the instance that you do, you come out way better on the other end of that.
Yeah. So I have my own little Masoris each year, and a lot of times they're revolved around archery elk hunting.
For
So
sure. Yeah.
one time, a couple years ago, I tried to do a 100-mile archery elk hunt um, in 5 days with no food or water, and that was an interesting experience.
Yeah, how'd that go?
I did not succeed.
Yeah, but I think yeah, like you said, the concept of challenging yourself, doing hard things, and I think that's so cool that you did that with your 14-year-old daughter and her cousin because now you're introducing that concept earlier on, and especially in this day and age, kids are comfortable playing video games or comfortable watching movies and staying at home. And I grew up if I wanted to do something, I had to go outside and find something to do, right? But now technology is so advanced that you don't have to do that anymore. So I think it's really cool that not just a teenager that you've introduced that to, but also like being a female myself, like I think less often are women wanting to challenge themselves in that way, and that's something that like I'm a huge advocate of. Is you don't even have to go backcountry elk hunting or hunting period to challenge yourself, but like find ways to get out there and challenge yourself and push yourself, and the you that comes out on the other end of that is way better than the you that went into that.
Oh, 100%. You learn so much by like just knowing who you are by doing something like that. And society nowadays is so soft and weak. Like I don't know if we need to go down that rabbit hole, but it's so
Yeah.
soft and weak. Oh man, it really bothers me. But um, yeah, you learn a lot about yourself by pushing your limits, pushing these boundaries.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I have one last question before we kind of wrap up things here. We kind of talked about like what does training look like for you going into the season, and I know you said kind of your business now is hunting year round and full time. Do you ever have like a true off season, and if so, what does that look like for you?
Not really. There's really not an off season. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to have an off season and not going on as many hunts for family's sake and money's sake, and right.
For
But
sure.
the off season would be probably right now where it's coming in like February, March. Um, April is like turkey/bear season typically in the spring, and then you have your summer. Summer, I do a lot of fishing. I like to do a boat, so I'll take my daughter out fishing
Nice,
and
yeah.
so a lot of fishing in the summer, and then starting August is hunting again, right? So uh, pronghorn in August, I might do a caribou, and then it's elk September, October, mule deer. And then I go on some other trips outside of the States, Mexico, Canada, gone to Africa before. But yeah, it's pretty much year round. If I'm not hunting, I'm creating content, or I'm doing marketing. Yeah, it's definitely year round.
And do you still feel like to this day that you're kind of still always learning? Like you mentioned going to these different countries and hunting and all of that. Like that's one thing that I enjoy anything like hunting or anything else outside of hunting. Like I'm a forever learner and I love learning new things. Do you still feel like to this day there's still some things to be learned? And is that part of like the chase or the obsession for you as well?
Oh, 100%. Like, I still don't feel like I know even close to, if you put like knowing all the hunting knowledge from like 1 to 100 or 0 to 100, I still feel like I'm at like 40. I know a lot. I know a
Yeah.
lot more than most people just because I'm obsessed about it and I'm constantly thinking about it and doing it. But I'm so far from knowing it all, especially in other countries. And what's something that's really cool about going to another country like Africa or Mexico or Canada or wherever, you think, man, I'm going to Africa. I don't speak the language. I'm going to Mexico. I don't speak the language. They don't speak my language. But what's something that's really, really cool about it is there's like a universal hunting language. People that
Mhm.
hunt just know hunters, and you can communicate, and you just know each other. Like we're the same people, same torn from the same cloth, same breed. So like the conversations would be the same as like me talking to someone here in the States about hunting is in Africa about hunting. It's so cool, like just having that bond and that family kind of feel, you know.
Yeah, that's something that I've realized too. I think and like you said, there's bad eggs in every batch, but most of the people that I've come across in the hunting world and industry and people I find at the bow shop are just some of the most genuine, down to earth people. And I think it comes down to, like we talked about, there's this common recognition of the pursuit that you like to do hard things, that you like to challenge yourself, you like to put yourself out there. And I think that's ultimately what ties all hunters together. And maybe even what weeds some people out of it because they don't like to continue to challenge themselves.
Yeah.
Sweet. This has been an incredible conversation, and I feel like we could go on forever about multiple things. Even like someone like me who's new to hunting and someone like you who's been doing it forever, I could and probably will continue to ask questions and just pick your brain. But I
Was there,
end
anything that you want to go over? Like what's on your mind? What do you want to know about
yeah.
hunting?
Yeah, I'll definitely have to come to you for more questions because like I said, I'm always learning. I'm always trying to find people, and not that I've struggled with this, but some people have their knowledge and they're, like I said, the bad eggs in every basket. They will share like very little with you because they don't want to share too much with fear of you becoming successful too. And it's like we're all out here doing the same thing. Like it's not that bad. But
Yeah.
yeah, I end every episode asking my guest, what does wild strength mean to you? Kind of a play on words, play on the title of the podcast, but you can take it however, whichever direction you want to take it. Some people take it quite literally. Some people bring like a mental health side of it into things. But Kurt, what does wild strength mean to you?
Wild strength. And I apologize, I'm not super versed in your podcast and like what
No, it's fine. Yeah.
um wild strength to me, I think it is more of a mentality. It's
Mhm.
for me it's like if I think about those two words together, it's doing hard things, being more primitive, getting away from comforts. It's constant every day being better, pushing myself physically and mentally, and getting out into nature and enjoying nature.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that's a perfect answer. Where can people find you if they are interested in your hunt mentor program? If they want to ask you a question or they just want to see what hunts you're up to, where can people find you?
Sure. Yeah, I'm like always on my Instagram. Seems like I'm doing something in Western Obsessions TV. But my website is westernobsessionstv.com. You can learn a little bit more about Hunt Mentor Program. I have a YouTube channel, Western Obsessions TV, and I'm on Carbon TV. If you want to see some of the long form episodes, and my podcast is on Carbon TV.